for the Agile group. So I'm glad you're here. This is our second meetup, our first official meetup. So welcome. I'm Carol Deckers. I'm the organizer for this particular meetup. And it's a thrill to be here. So first off, I'd like to say thank you to our venue and drink sponsor, Tammy Parente. Did I pronounce that right? Kaiser University, and I'll give her a few minutes or 30 seconds to come on up here. Come on up here.
Again, I want to thank you guys so much for being here and welcome you to Kaiser University. Although we are known mostly as a nursing, technology and software engineering and computer science, so I'm trying to reach out to our community members like you to let you know, hey, we're here. So I love hosting these community events, which gives me a chance to get to know each of you. So thank you and welcome.
And Tammy was just immediate to say Kaiser will host us. So thank you so much. Then I'd also like to say thank you to Angelica Chadwick with the Lucas Group. Angelica, who provided us with the great dinner.
Anybody familiar with us? Just curious. So I've been with the company just a little less than 2 years, but I've been in this market for 16 doing IT recruiting. So run a tech practice, we're an executive search firm, and we run an agile recruiting team as well. So it's a topic that's pretty close to our hearts, and since we're working with a lot of companies, over 42 companies in this market, recruiting and looking for agile coaches and project managers, portfolio managers, all run Agile, Scrum, and Kanban. We'd love to come to these events and learn, so we're excited to see what is on display tonight at BigSea in the experiment. And thank you for having us, and thanks to Kaiser again for hosting.
So everybody's wondering why this is different. That's typical. We always wonder why when something's a little bit different. So coming out here is a little bit different. The heart of Agile is a little bit different. So what I'm going to invite you to do, if you don't mind, and you don't have to play. If you don't feel like playing, that's fine. Stand up. And I want you to meet maybe 2 or 3 people and find out why they chose the sticker they picked. Okay? It's not a judgment thing, just find out.
It is a judgment thing. I've never been a kid before.
And why did you choose this sticker you did?
Because I like the group.
Hey, that works. Nice to meet you, Dave.
Likewise. You were out there with the balloons on the lot.
Yes. Yes, we had a meetup, but
yeah,
it wasn't the same topic. So
Somebody had the same topic. Because I have that
yes, it's
on my notepad.
Not enough is now, right?
Okay. And I didn't get to go, but I pulled out one. I like that, so I put it on my notepad. 4 little pieces of paper made of copy paste all day long.
Right.
So I keep it just as a reminder. I swear to you, I'm not lying to you. I have that. Because I like that. I like the simplicity of it.
And you see, let's make sure that this is going to work.
I always find it kind of amazing that we sit in our little groups and we don't really know each other at all. And you find out things that you may not ordinarily have found through something as juvenile as stickers, right? So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Alistair Coburn, who is making his only autumn 2018 appearance at the Meetup group here in front of all of you. So, Alistair?
Just a short note, we're doing a Facebook live stream, and I was just told that the battery is being sucked out of my phone like crazy, and I have a cable that no spare battery. Does anybody have a battery or thing that we could plug in, or a laptop you're willing to let us charge from, or anything? It's over there. We can do it. Okay, I'll do that. We'll take care of that. Good deal. So thank you for coming out. We're starting meetups, Heart of Agile meetups all around the world. They're coming up now in Helsinki, in Aarhus, in Denmark, in Paris, in Dublin. Edinburgh's getting very on it. Melbourne, Australia's been on it. Santiago, Chile is starting up. So all these different places. So it's a real treat to do that here, because Tampa Bay Agile is so big and strong. We're happy to just kind of like fold in and be like thematically discussion area. Carol's going to be the monthly organizer for this. And so this is like the second one. The first one was maybe 2 months ago, but now it'll be like on a regular basis. And investigating just sort of the themes that the Heart of Agile, in case you don't know, is just 4 words. You've got the stickers and the pins at your tables. The 4 words are collaborate, reflect, improve. There is no more than that, right? So it's not a framework. It's not a methodology. It's I call it a focusing tool. It just reminds us to stop the complicated things and look at how we're collaborating, deliver, reflect, and improve. So that's what the Heart of Agile is, and that's why we have the meetups, because there's a lot to dig into the different themes. What is collaboration? How do you make it work? What is delivery? How do you make it work? What is this reflect thing? All those things are very deep, and so we're hoping in the successive meetups to kind of poke in, dig in, share experiences. And under sharing experiences, we have a really unique opportunity tonight, because BigSea, spelled S-E-A, not the letter C, but S-E-A. BigSea is a design company, and we've been trying to redo the website for Heart of Agile for about 8 months or 10 months or a long time. It's on its second or third. It wasn't like coming up from nothing. We had a site, it was adequate, and it was inadequate, and it got worse and horrible. We couldn't stand it, and all the rest. And I've tried distributed development, remote teams, and you can never get the design stuff to happen. So when I was in Melbourne, Australia, I tried to find somebody there, and when I was in Argentina, I tried to find somebody there. And I come to St. Pete, and literally have moved here. I now have a Florida driver's license. So I get and I go, maybe I can find a design company, and I go on the web, and I go, click, 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 the website design, that was 2,000, companies, something like that. And there was one that was 3 blocks from my house, my apartment, downtown St. Pete. So I click on it, and I'm reading, and they say they do Agile. So, well, I can't. This is too good to be true. So I write to them, all right, and say, hi, I'd like to have a website designed, and I kind of want this Agile thing. And I got a kind of a generic response back that, didn't say too much, but that's 3 blocks from my house. So I walked down there, and they literally walked in the front door unannounced to just go, Joe here. Yeah, I got an email from Joe. Can I talk to Joe? Hi, Joe. Joe's the president of the company. Joe, yeah, I want to do this website. I want to do this Agile stuff because, I want to work side by side with the designers and the programmers, right? That is very important to me. And so we, kind of set up a real basic contract. Obviously, it was not fixed It was time and materials because I don't mess with fixed. So now it's okay, fine. We have a contract. I show up, we can do stuff. And then Zooey walked in. Zooey is the CTO, and so Zooey started the conversation, and it took. And we had people. Soledad Hinter from, I don't know if she's from Brussels or Argentina. She spends time in both. She came, and from Serbia. Shout out to Serbians here. We have Serbian in the crowd. Hey, Georgie, we have a Serbian in the crowd here. Georgie came over from Serbia, and so we went. We kind of camped out at the BigSea place for a week. And you know, my main constituents are in Australia, so we have a really distributed group of people. So it was kind of tough like that. And we just went live a bit ago. And so these guys got kind of blindsided by Alistair showing up and doing this Agile thing at them. Not with them, not to them, but at them. And then they took notes and photos as we were going. So this is like a really neat experience. That's the report that's coming up. I have no idea what they're going to say. So I'm going to turn the stage over to Zooey.
Well, thanks for coming out and listening to our little talk today. That's a couple of you guys. And just to kind of feel the crowd a little bit, how many of you guys been involved with Agile for 5 years or less? Okay, pretty cool. 8 years or less? Nice. 10 years? Okay, 15? All right. Where's Ben? Ben, you're at 2005 is when you started. Is that right, Ben? Yeah. Awesome. So I am in no position to talk about what Agile is or Agile isn't. But we're grateful to hear our little story here. So as Alistair was saying, as a CTO of BigSea, I sometimes pulled into sales meetings, sometimes not. But when I saw Alistair's name on the calendar invite and realized he was coming in, I kind of geeked out, right? So I don't know how people are falling out, but literally I was like sweating and all this stuff. Joe, as Alistair says, hey, I have this emergency. You take over. So I'm like, oh yeah, how's my hair? How's so I started walking the room, and I'm like, gotta do this. Gotta be the sales guy, right? Get away from the code for a little bit, be the sales guy. Sit in front of Alistair, and I'm like, hi, nice to meet you. Like, we're playing cool, right? Like, whatever, it's Alistair. So I sit down and start talking to him. Of course, we're finding out how he heard about us. Like I said, he Googled us, found out we did a little Agile and all that stuff. And so he's sitting there, and he's like, so do you know Agile, or do you do Agile, or are you Agile? And so what day when Alex says, are you like, yeah, kind of, right? I mean, like, sure, we do the things that make us Agile. And as of January 2017, we made our transformation. What that looked like was going to a lot of these meetups, right? Following Ed, give his talks, Stephanie, do their talks, the meetup groups, the whole community has been fantastic. What we did was we hit those hard, we read a lot, we did a ton of Googling, and consider ourselves Agile. Oh, I have slides. 2017, we gave a meetup talk about what was like for us to transform to being Agile. So anyway, so here we are today. Experience working with Alistair. The meeting was, hey, here's my agency. We are 24 people strong. We have cross-functional teams divided into. And we have the Sea Dragons, the name of one team, and the Mana team, which is the name of the other team. Sea Dragons. That's right. Kind of told him about how our layout is, what engagement might look like. He was telling us kind of the problems he'd run into site. It's just this thing called Heart Agile. I wasn't really sure what that was. Right up until now, I knew our Agile to be everything you read from Manifesto for Agile Software, right? And from you name it, like Agile Mountain Goat or whatever the sites were. That are just huge sites everywhere. So that's what we figured. Okay, really cool. Let's work together. So I think I could do something. After he left, I literally calmed down for like 1 second, ran out to the office, and was like, guys, you know who that was, right? So I told everybody, Alistair, we're gonna start working this engagement, but there's a problem. The problem is that BigSea, we've been around for 13 years now, and one of the things that I'm most proud of about our agency is that we are process strong, process heavy, right? When you're an agency, you're working with some odd 30, 40 clients at one time. And in order to stay alive and stay lean and do all these things, you have to have strong processes, right? That makes us survive where we were. So again, the whole shift in 2017 to go Agile is say, hey, things are working pretty well. How do we make them better? So let's look at this Agile thing. Let's refine the process. And about a year and a half later to this day is when we're in Alistair, and this is where the journey begins. So of course, like I said, I was sitting across from Alistair, and he says, hey, are you Agile? I'm like, Agile-ish. So what we really need to understand is that we had to start this whole project, this whole experiment, if you will, with the beginner's mindset, right? Like, I'm not going to tell Alistair that we're Agile and this is what Agile is. Like I would normally another client. I wouldn't say, yes, we do, retros, we store, user story, anything. Like, I'm not going to tell this guy how to do this, right? I'm like, hey, I kind of know, because truthfully, when you see me across the table from the legend, you don't know, right? So I think that was the first effort that we had to do on our side was really come at it with a beginner's mindset. And so immediately after following the meeting, I come talk to our team, and I'm like, hey guys, this is a huge opportunity for us. We're always doing what we can do and trying to work on it to be better. But what this is going to take is, hey, let's just forget everything we've known, right? Forget about how to do things. Forget about how we think sprint plans go, retro stand-ups go, whatever we think makes us agile. Really just come up with an open mind and figure out how we can learn from Alistair, and in the process of doing so, hopefully create products. So this is interesting, true story. I was at a Chinese restaurant in St. Pete, and this is my fortune cookie. You guys see it from there? It says, "May the warm winds of heaven blow softly upon your spring." It's like is that a sign? Like what is this, right? So I had to take a picture. I was like, I know where this is gonna go. It's gonna go over here. And I realized this is exactly what our first approach to Agile was. I don't know how many guys can sympathize if you guys are on the ground floors of your organizations going Agile. This is what it was. A bunch of cool little words put together that sound really fun, right? It just feels good and warm fuzzy inside. If you look at it, I'm like, I don't really know what that means, right? So again, it makes sense, and sense makes dollars. We just play on how fun things can and can't be. Nevertheless, that's where we were, I think, and we were doing all things like stand-ups. We were doing things like sprint planning. We were doing retrospectives. We were, little elements of everything the book tells you to do. Like the book say, hey, start doing this, but keep in mind, Agile is a way of thinking. It's not just, all these activities, but whatever. We did what we thought we were doing to be Agile. So that you need a slide to show that you guys, you have some gravitas on stage. So this is really the only reason why you should listen to me, because I gave another Meetup talk like last year at this time, November 7th. So if you're not impressed with that, I don't know. But the fun thing about this is, what's interesting about this talk is that this will almost be happening a year. And at that point, it had been about 11 months since we went. And I would have to say, to practice this conversation that you'll hear from later, it is night and day. It's a night and day difference, right? Just doing the things that we think makes Agile really doesn't do what we thought it would do. And at the end of the day, despite everything you read, it really is true, and it's a mindset shift, right? So again, thank you for judging us. This, Alistair didn't bring up, is an interesting quote. This quote is, sure, but you can't come in and interrupt the team. Alistair left up part of when he's talking to Joe, he walks in and says, hey, I love that you're nearby. I can pop in, I can sit down next to the team and do this, and do that. And of course, we're so finely honed that, like everybody has to go hours, roll time, you name all that stuff, right? So Joe says, this is so harsh, but he says, well, it's fantastic. Yeah, we're down with operating, but you can't come to the team all the time, right? Like, that just can't happen. So I use that as a funny before and after pitch about how we were really Agile. Like, you say we're Agile, what does that really mean, right? And it wasn't until we were in line by Alistair and so in the team really that kind of intrigued us here. So, oh yeah, okay, I won't. This is a snapshot, right, of one day, and over 3 months that we were working on this project, we were grateful to have Alistair come in. I don't know, you get your own desk after a while, and he came in and he got his coffee, and it was just fantastic. He'd make little jokes about, just coffee in, and we'd all team up and talk about it. And I do have to say that what's really interesting is when we first talked with the team, I was like, hey, this was going to happen. And the team had some pushback, right? They were like, I don't know if I can pair design. I don't know if I can sit next to somebody the whole time. Just because, you think about it, like there's task lists between 13 different projects that they had to finish. So it was really a thing. I'm grateful that you guys took it on and had the beginner's mindset, because without it, I don't think we'd be nearly as evolved as we are today. So this is all the fun stuff. One of the best things about the mindset shift that Alistair has taught me is two main takeaways. And I hate to oversimplify it, but there's two things that are really interesting. First one is that he says, hey, we have to make it fun. Like, work can be fun. I know that sounds kind of like whatever, like, yeah, great concept, but it's true, right? Like, work can be fun. I think because of that, over time, the team has really enjoyed working on this project, and I think it shows. I think it shows in all the regular we have to deliver towards the end. And the second thing that was really important is, like, oh, by the way, so there's like 40 more pictures like this that Alistair came in and gave me great deep how-tos, right? So as I come in, as we're going to find out, I'm like, all right, here's my notebook. I'm going to take all these notes because, beginner's mindset. Tell me how to do this, Alistair. Like, I'm used to tell me the how. Give me the 1 through 10 steps that will make me agile. First day we start. I'm like, Alistair, how do you want to start this? Do you want to? He says, no. What do you normally do? And so I'm like, oh, is this guy gonna teach me anything? Like he's telling me to do what I normally do? Like, that's really weird, but okay, let's roll with it, right? So yeah, so we start having those discussions and all these wonderful things. And what I was like, through our first transformation, the first time around, we would do stand-ups. And some people would be like, hey, I like stand-ups. A lot of people say, hey, I don't like stand-ups. Why? You know, all these things.
Now arriving at Croxton.
That's what I want, right? Like, it's like we've worked so hard. We think you're happy. We've done all these things, but we haven't delivered. And so I think what's interesting to us is that what we thought of Agile before was a framework that made things really good for us internally, right? Clients sometimes got into it, clients sometimes get into it. But because of this, we understood that collaboration really involved two-sided communication. It's with the clients, right? It's not how we do things and you do things our way, or how do you do things and you do things your way. It's what's the best way to do things so that we can collaborate. Right? Because ultimately, after all these, the only thing that really matters, no partial credit, is delivery. Right? And that's something that we're pretty proud of. So like, we finally did deliver, some last slide, that's my last slide. When we did finally deliver, it was probably the best day of my life, right? So I have not ever been about like chasing certificates or anything like that, or anything. I just don't care. Right? I'm all about like substance, blah, blah, blah. But Alex comes in, surprises us all with certificates, presents us with this Heart of Agile certificate for doing this work. And I think for the first time, we really have earned it. So yeah, so I think what you'll hear now is kind of everybody else's take on the process. Next, I'd like to introduce Erica Stanley. She's our account manager, and she will go into it further.
So, as Billy said, I am the account manager, which means that I was Alistair's main point of contact throughout most of the project. Although, as you saw, everyone on the team became Alistair's main point of contact. In and out. But I really want to talk about how the magic of the tangible. And we probably all, but definitely us, we live in a space that is so online and in front of our screens, whether the screens are our laptops or our phones. And spoiler alert, the whole moral of my story is how important getting out of that and out from behind the screen and into the tangibles in turning our team and this whole project around. So, okay. So at BigSea, and I think a lot of agencies and a lot of you guys are probably used to a lot of processes and systems, and you manage a lot of things. You have a lot of clients, a lot of projects going on. You live in these systems, and they are your like
life and your breath. So Alistair came in and Zooey introduced him to the team. Hey, we've got this new client. I'm like, yay, new clients. I love new clients. And I set him up. Welcome to BigSea, Alistair. I set him up in our teamwork system, which is what we do. We have these systems. And Alistair came in and we used Trello. We created a beautiful Trello board with all of these user journeys, and we had this wonderful meeting of minds. And we started off the process with him similar to how we start off the process with all of our clients. We get them set up, we have a big kickoff meeting, we do all of these amazing things with our clients, and then we continue to go back to this, which works. It helps keep us all organized, and it helps keep everything in line, and it helps keep me sane. But he told me after we've done this whole process, like, but it's got no shape. And I had no idea. My dog would be going crazy right now. Because this is how account management is. So all of those plates are all of the different clients that I deal with. Whether it's different clients or different projects, we are constantly spinning. We are constantly keeping those plates up in the air. And so all of these things, all these boxes and systems, they help us keep the plates in the air. But we're not building this project for us. We weren't building this project for us. So none of that mattered to the client, to our client. So how did we break out of this? Well, Alistair came in and he did a session with us. I was not feeling well that day, so I was not on my A game, but I still managed to have a few takeaways, the main one of which was making tasks tangible. So the first thing we did, we sat down with the whole team, the design team, the production operations team, account management, the developers, anybody that was going to touch this project at all. And we wrote down anything that we might think we would have to do to ship this project. So we merged Alistair system with our own boxes. Remember the beautiful Trello board? So each of the pins represented a break in sprint planning. So we took all of the cards in the beautiful shape that we had created, and we reorganized. We scrapped the initial Trello board. We reorganized everything into the micro tasks to help out with our resourcing. Where are these projects and these tasks going to fall in line with all of the other things that we had to do? This was the shape that came from this. It was a really, really magical moment having the entire team and all the cards laid out. And we had rearranged all the tables in the conference room. And I'm a don't move my cheese person. So rearranging the tables in the conference room, what is going on? But we had them all in a big line, and Andy's there taking pictures, and everything was laid out. And there was so much more buy-in from the team from that day, from that moment. We took the cards, we had them in our hands, we took the pins, they were color-coded, we put the amount of time that we thought it was going to take. What do I think it's going to take to create this piece of this project that's part of this big project? And I'm accountable for that card. Having it be tangible meant more than having it on the Trello board. It went into the Trello board because that's where we live and that's where we have to stay sane. But there was something different about having it on the cards. There's something different about the tangible that was all buy-in from that day on. And the last slide of this, I just wanted to show. Alistair, I don't think you've seen this, but we actually, Adriana and I went a few weeks later and met with another client where we did a similar exercise, and we wrote down all of their wish list items. We had met with the client a couple of times. We had all the different things that they wanted to do. We had all the different wish list clients. We did the same exact thing. We rearranged the tables in their conference room, and we laid out all the cards, and they walked around the table, and this team of brilliant women rearranged the cards into their have to do's, would like to do's, and their things that can wait. And having them take the cards and put them into, okay, this is the thing that we absolutely have to do. There was magic in that moment of having the client take the card and decide, like make that final decision. This is important to me. This thing I thought was so important, I'm now realizing, oh, that can kind of wait. This is how we're getting to our MVP that we're actually launching. I think we're like 2 or 3 weeks away with the project plan. So this is our MVP over here. The client didn't even know what an MVP was. Your MVP sticker. So yes, so that is that. The client didn't even know what they were doing, but there was so much power in that moment because now they have control of the project. They have buy-in on the project, and our team knows where to start with our priorities. So. Next up.
I'm going to talk about Yadney. You ain't gonna need it. This really feeds, this is a little Alistair speak. This really feeds well from both what Zee and Erica just talked about. So this is my personal take on, again, what we got out of this project. I feel like what Erica was just talking about with all of the planning is the point at which we are all asked to essentially predict the future. To go through the planning process, to lay out all of the cards, to try to figure out what is it going to take from today to launching this project, whatever the project is. So we're excited, we're kicking off, we're doing all the things, and then we ask, well, what's the plan? Alistair asks, what's the plan? How do we get there? And in order to assess this, we had to start asking a lot of questions that we didn't always ask, and now we do. The first one is a need versus want. Do you really need it? Or do you just want it? Maybe you just want it, and maybe that becomes something that goes into the project. But if you just want it, you need to think about that, because what's really important is, do you really need it? And if you do you need it right now? With the Heart of Agile, one of the things that we were working on from the very beginning was to have a login for consultants, and it was a big part of what we talked about and a big part of what we planned. We got to a point where we realized we don't really need that right now. We're going to be doing that. That's actually in the next phase, and that's really exciting. But we were able to launch the project by asking these questions to say, we didn't actually need it at the moment, and we can go ahead and get to launch without that particular item. So we should always be thinking, these are my questions. I think you can come up with your own, but every single feature on a project, I find it a good idea now to go over things like, will it be useful? And whenever I say will it be useful, I mean, will your users actually use it? So not do you think it will be useful, but will they use it? And this might need to be tested. Autumn and I always love to talk about data. So you might have this big idea for this particular feature, and what you could really do is, we're not sure if it's going to be useful, but we think it might. So maybe you do a smaller version of it, you launch with a smaller version of it, you get some data out there, and you see, are users actually using it? Well, maybe that's something that can grow now. They're not using it, you ain't gonna need it. It needs to come right out of the project. So you don't want to spend all the time building this big, giant, huge thing that took the time and the money and the resources when you didn't actually need it because it ended up being a waste. Everything changes. So you also want to ask, while we're going through all these questions and you're changing things as you go, did something that you did 2 weeks ago actually change what you're talking about today? I find that that's a question you have a tendency not to ask because you have the plan. And this was, I've got that card down the list. This is the 4th card, and it's going to go into the 5th sprint, and we're going to do it because that was the plan. And you don't stop to think and ask, did something I did 2 weeks ago actually change that now? So now I really need to rethink it, and it might be obsolete. Possible that you're not going to need it. And then, of course, is there just a simple and elegant way to do what it is that you wanted to do? Everybody, developers, designers, it doesn't matter, every discipline, you get into a mindset a lot of times where this is the thing I want to do, and I know how I'm going to do it, and I have my own personal plan for how I'm going to execute this. But asking, is there a simpler way that you can do it, can a lot of times bring down the time, and sometimes, as we say, determine that you're not going to need it. So always be questioning, question the purpose of every single feature on a project, look at it, see if there's a simple and elegant way to do it. Is it necessary to get the job done? And to quote, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. Stop to think if you should. It's possible you don't need to. With that, I want to introduce Adriana, our creative director at BigSea.
So this is sort of how Alistair would show up at our office. And I need to say these are literally the things I've learned from you, so I'm not so if you can't tell, he's not business as usual. And we could tell that pretty early on. And so we approached this project with open minds and a spirit of experimentation. And that spirit of experimentation would certainly come in handy as our normal systems and our boundaries were stretched. And I want to share 4 examples of times throughout the project in which I said, you know what, it works, so I'm going to embrace it. The first example is what I'm calling side-by-side designing. We already alluded to that. So when we first started the project, one of the tasks was to revise the logo. So we did that. I chose some colors. Everyone hated them. And we were lucky enough to have Sole and Georgie in St. Pete visiting. So Alistair thought, well, why don't we just save a bunch of time and we'll all just come to the office and we'll just choose the colors together. And Sole and Georgie are 2 of the sweetest, most thoughtful clients that I've worked with. But even saying that, I was feeling a little risky to do that. All of us just deciding that's just not in my comfort zone. But beginner's mindset, open minds, all of that. So there we were, huddled around my computer, choosing the final, sort of like at the eye doctor. this, or this, or this. And, you know, it totally worked. I had given myself 2 hours to do this on my own. And with the 4 of us, we cut that into, I think, half. And we had a timer on the clock to start. So we had this structure, but when you start working with someone for the first time, you don't really know what time constraints mean to them. So I was a little nervous, to be honest, but it worked. And when they left, I was stunned. And I thought working literally together makes so much more sense. So why wouldn't I embrace it? The next is share it with the masses. So another practice that they shared with me was that they would regularly put ideas and options on Twitter and actively solicit feedback. And the first time he said he was going to do this, I think I muttered like, but I really felt more like this. But I kept it cool, and you know what? It worked again. Because ultimately, the heart of Agile community is going to have feedback. It's part of the thing. It's the community. And Soleil, Georgie, and Alistair are motivated to pivot based on this feedback. And BigSea is data-driven as well. So we're motivated by that. We're driven by data, and this real-time data was plentiful. So within reason and within usefulness, why wouldn't we implement this feedback early on? The third example is what I'm calling the pop-in and knockout. So we had lots of work sessions after the first logo one, but one that comes to mind in particular is when I was upstairs in the office. So we've got this cubicle that we've set up, and it's for optimum focus and really just to avoid people. And I'm working there on the Heart of Agile website, and all of a sudden, Zooey comes in with Alistair. And Alistair's looking for a private workspace as well. And so normally, I'm not really keen on being, you know, interrupted when I'm in my private getaway cubicle. It sort of looks something like this. But for this particular instance, I was genuinely really glad to see him because I had a lot of questions. I had a long to-do list. And we sat down and knocked out in maybe a little over an hour, honestly, what could have taken very easily several days with back and forth and do we like this, do we not like this? So again, working literally together side by side was working. So something I never would have thought I would embrace, stopping what I'm doing to pop and have a session, I was completely into it. It totally worked. And I should say, every single time one of these instances would come up and we would come out on the other side, our working relationship strengthened and our trust in one another deepened. And trust would be very important in my final example. It's called open all lines of communication. So I like to keep my personal and my professional communication separate. I realize that not everyone has this luxury, and that's the choice I make. And from 8:30 to 5, I'm all yours, I'm totally in it. But outside of that, I don't really like to text with clients. I don't even have email, my work email on my phone. But so in one of our work sessions, Alistair said, well, just send me a screenshot of that through Facebook Messenger so he could share it on Twitter. And I was like, oh, having another one of these. But at this point, I was trusting the process that we were developing, our unique process of what was working. And every time something pushed me and I embraced it, we were better for it. The project was better for it. So I pushed this aside, and from that point on, anytime I had a question or any screenshot I needed to share, I did it through Facebook Messenger, and I received pretty much immediate feedback. So it just kept things going at the clip that a project that has deadlines needs to be at. So this is my favorite picture of us with all our certificates. Very proud day. I don't know if you can see the champagne and the port and the cake, but there was also cake and champagne port. So I realized that not every project is the same, not every client is the same. I couldn't necessarily take any of these examples and apply them to our other clients, but it was really eye-opening to loosen up a little bit on what we normally do in order to see what practices could emerge that would move something along quicker and more efficiently. And so I would just encourage you in your next project to think of that and think of maybe abandoning some practices that aren't working for the ones that feel really scary that could actually help with efficiency and help with ease. And of course, practices that work for you, for your client, and for your project.
Final lesson that I want to share with you guys is polish less, share more. Oh, and I should say that you can go to our website and under our ideas tab, there is a blog that Adriana wrote all about this experience, and it shares more in depth each of these, what we're calling shiny gems, the shiny gems we uncovered during our experience with the Art of Agile. So Alistair and I bonded in our discovery meeting over two things. We are both poets and we both enjoy dubstep. I promise that will become relevant. So I am the content strategist and copywriter on the Sea Dragons team. So I was in charge of the words on the website. This is our traditional model. I've been a professional writer for over 10 years now, and this is the model that I've kind of always operated in with agencies. So we do a discovery, and then I deliver a first draft, and then I deliver it internally, and then there's changes. And then I deliver it to the client, and then there's changes. And we do a second client delivery, there's final changes, and then it goes live, right? That's the model. But here's how the traditional model feels once you've established yourself as an expert as a copywriter. After the discovery, you're like, I know everything I need to know about this client. And I go into my little hub, my little hole, and I put on my dubstep real loud so that no one can talk to me. And I work for hours by myself. Deliver it to the internal, and they have a little bit of feedback, and I touch it, and send it out to the client. And the client has feedback, and that feels like failure because I want to impress them. And they're like, oh, but this, and I'm like, oh, I suck at everything. So I go back in my little hole, and I put my dubstep back on, and I bang away at the keys, and I make it perfect, right? I think to myself, now they're going to love it. So what happens as the project goes on, things change, right? We've talked a lot about change. So every time there's a change, Adriana will come to me in the morning. She'll be like, hey, I need to talk to you about some things that changed in the design. It's going to change some copy. And I'm like, no, there will be no more changes. It starts to feel very frustrating, right? So it's a mindset. That is the antithesis of Agile. It's very destructive to the team. It's the morale of the team and productivity of the project. So I needed to get out of that mindset, and Alistair tore that mindset. Wow. And he did that by being face-to-face with me, and we wrote copy together. And that is not something that writers traditionally do. We are like solo peers. So he was like, hey, I'll just come in, and we'll work on the homepage copy together. And I was like, oh, no. And I adore you, but no. But he made it really funny. He's like, no, we're going to do a mind meld. And I was like, that sounds cool. We did that. And it was amazing because Alistair is also a writer. And so he would come to me and he'd be like, why did you choose this? And I could talk to him like a writer. I could say, well, because I want to communicate this. And he's like, yeah, I agree with that. There's too many syllables in that sentence. All right, now we're talking like poets. I can get with that. So we created homepage copy both from the idea and the words themselves had to feel right. And what that meant was a whole attitude about the project. So now when you got to me and said we've had some change in design, it meant that I got another opportunity to sit with Alistair up in the focus room, and we were going to talk about poetry and the way words feel, and if that, are the T's too pointy there? Are there too many consonants in that sentence? Change that. How can we make it more action-oriented? Now it's a writing workshop. Now it's fun. So changes were no longer self. It's not about fewer versions. I did a lot of versions because a lot of things changed. So that wasn't the point. The point was I had greater agility. We always had solid buy-in between the two of us, and the whole team felt better. So this is what we started with. This was our original homepage copy. There's a lot of words. This is the homepage that's live. So you can see how much it changed. I mean, right up until I think the week before launch, we were still tweaking homepage copy because it wasn't quite where we all wanted it to be. It was an amazing experience. So 11 saved versions later of this document, but it didn't matter. And now it changed the way I focus with my other clients. I can say to them, hey, let's get on the phone together. Let's do a video chat. Let me look you in the eye and get a Google Doc going that we can write side by side. And that is blowing their minds. Even the ones that aren't writers are perfectly willing to sit on a Google Doc and just type words out. And then I'll go behind them and I'll type words out. And we work on these problems together. And so we always have greater buy-in. And they, I'm still in the words person for the most part. Alistair is a very good writer, but that's not always the case. A lot of times it's I can't do words, and that's fine. But we are collaborating in a way that I have never done before with clients. So that's been my experience. We still deliver a lot. Oh my gosh, talk about breaking down barriers of communication. Alistair and I talk on WhatsApp and on Facebook Messenger, and we text each other. Calls me sometimes, and my child is literally asleep on me on a Saturday, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? All lines of communication just to say, how do you feel about this sentence? How do you feel about that sentence? Constant iterations, and that's okay. It's actually great. It's what resulted in some of my proudest work. So that's my experience in college. Go ahead.
I took some notes. So I took some notes on what these guys were saying, just compared against my experience, right? Because I didn't know what they were going to say. But there was Zooey tipped me off on one thing. He said, I talked to one of the designers, or I don't know if it was Adrian or other than, and said, well, and the client's he's gonna come and sit next to you like and co-design with you. She goes, oh no, no, we don't do that here. So that's really a big change. But if I go through, I particularly wanted to pick up, I love, by the way, Erica goes, but it has shape. There are squares. Sweet. But a thing about the planning, and you get everybody in the room, and you just say, what are all the things you have to do? You don't say tasks, what are tasks? And then you do this mind meld of everybody, and then everybody pitches in. But what's interesting about that, because, I'm paying for it, right? So I'm in the odd situation. I'm the client. So I'm paying for them, and I'm also the product owner, right? And I'm also kind of one of the team because I'm one of the writers. Because there's really a weird situation, but I'm very, very conscious of the number of people in the room, right? If you have 5 people in the room at pick any number that you like, it's a lot of money per hour, right? And it's my money. It's my pocket. I don't have to do this today, kind of stuff. So we did blitz planning. We had everybody in there. It struck me, we did the official blitz planning. We had the cards. We said, do we have to do that? We actually made changes in the requirements, changes in the project plan, because they said, that's 13 hours. And I'm, my accountant in me is busy doing stop. I'm going, there's not going to be 13 hours of anything in here that I want to know about, right? So do we have to have it? 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 Can we take it out? What else can we do? So we got that, but I'm looking from a budget perspective and a time perspective, right? Take it out. So we got to a thing, and we were done. And then some of us were transcribing, doing stuff. But what struck me was the people in the room kept looking at the table in different constellations. They would show up. So Zooey and somebody else, while we were all taking notes and doing what we were doing, they were just kept looking at it and looking at it. And they weren't comfortable. And they were looking at it, and they go, we don't need that. Out goes a card, right? And then Erica and somebody else comes up, and different. And they're walking up and down. They go, we can put that up here. We could take this out, then we could have that earlier, right? So it's not just that it was the thing that took an hour, but it stayed there, and people go, it's a little puzzle. You're trying to move things up and take things up, and it's all there. It's everybody working on the puzzle. So one of them that was for me very significant, and I was happy with Erica. They do that with other clients also. The other one, I love that Adrian, these short terms. There's a thing, a new term that I just coined, listening to you.
So I coined it.
I coined it, listening to you. But I will tag you whenever you said it. You didn't say, but it's this, I'm going to call decision badminton. And I think you've heard me say this. This is what their life was like before, is what I heard. So Adriana would draw the logo to the client. The client maybe a week later would go, I like it. Right? What I said. I like it. So she would work again, and here's a new one. Right? And then whenever they have time, a week, 2 weeks, whenever they have time, they'll, I don't like it. Right? And I call it decision badminton. Right? That's what I'm calling it, decision badminton. Really, this decision is just going back and forth. And so what we did was we would get together, literally would knock out the decisions in 20 minutes. I don't know that there was actually any design session that went more than 20 minutes. And one time, the programmer, Jeff, there was something about the Facebook feed. And she said, well, that's what the plugin is. That's what I don't like it. And so she said, well, let's call Jeff up. So Jeff comes up, and he's talking about, I have these plugins I can do. And she's busy sketching on paper different ideas, and I'm going, yes, no, yes, no. 15 minutes later, we have a brand new idea. You know, the design works, the plugins works, and all the rest. All the decisions are closed out, so there's no dangling. There's no decision badminton. It's not like next week. These were done. The decisions were completely done. So it was that. It was fun watching her face a couple of times. So she says, well, we have this little design sketch, you know, and I'll clean it up. And I said, well, the decisions are Australia. We have to get feedback, and they're already in bed, so I'll clean it up and I'll put it on the shared drive, and I'm going to screen snapshot it and send it to me in Messenger, and I'll just put it on the thing. She looks at me, there was this like, what? It's not finished. So in the heart of it, on the liver, the thing we look at are decisions, individual decisions, and you want energy polishing up a decision, have enough in front. We got it down to the absolute single decisions. And I said, all we need for that decision is just directional. Send me the screen snapshot off the, she goes, okay, boom, and she got it. And she got so into it. She was just like, the quickest way to communicate is to make a video. So it came in a day or two later. She was a message. Hey, Alistair, I made a video for you. Here's how you do. Autumn wasn't there. And we spent, and Sola was in Brussels, so we had, you know, Zoom and whatever, FaceTime, whatever going, talking about these design things. We had some open issues. At the end of an hour, however long we were there, she goes, well, I'll write this up for Autumn and for, you know, Sola and everybody. And I go, how long will that take you? She goes, oh, you know, about a half an hour. I go, when, do you remember this, right? When do you have a half an hour? She doesn't have a half an hour to write up stuff. So she kind of looked like that. And I said, Zooey was in the room doing, you know, whatever he was doing. I go, Zooey, grab your camera. So Zooey was literally typing with one hand and holding the camera with the other hand, right? And then we grabbed the laptop and go, hey, because we're talking to Autumn. It's not a process. We're talking to Autumn. Hey, Autumn, this is what we did in the meeting, and here's the things. We changed this, and this is for you. Da 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 da. And she said this, and you know, Sola said that. 5 minutes later, we had the thing done on the drive, and she didn't have to document anything. She goes, oh, I like this, right? So she's like the black belt now on finding the shortest path to get a piece of communication done in whatever ways needed to get the information to another person's head or get a decision. That was decision badminton. And then the thing that Autumn didn't say, I got you guys. Not too much about you. She said she used the, you know, whatever right is God's gift to the client, you know, kind of thing, like she said. Now she said, she told me, if the client doesn't complain, I know they didn't read it. So if I send something to the client, and they go, good, she goes, no, I know they didn't read it, to get them on the phone, and we're going to read it together, because I know they have a comment. They don't comment, they didn't read it. So that's what I got for you.
There's one thing I like
it was Soy in Buenos Aires, Argentina, recording this Zoom. So
Can we
if it's
turn
okay,
this around? So
I'm going to
say
introduce
hi
you to.
everybody. So,
So you'll now all be on the Zoom recording.
we have time for some questions. If you want to ask them questions about their experience. Yeah.
First of all, this is a wonderful presentation on the style, experiences. Your candor was very refreshing. So all that's great. The website is very simple and easy to navigate. I read the whole thing last night. It wasn't too much information. It was just the right amount. So kudos and all that.
Thank you.
Oh, great. And I guess while you were talking, and then Alistair then unintentionally kind of spoiled my question, I'm gonna just ask it anyway because I'm new to the community and I'm trying to observe what you're saying. So I kept thinking about Scrum and impediment and stakeholders, customers getting in the way of the work in progress. And then when Alistair said that he considered himself a product owner, I was like, oh, okay, that question I was going to ask maybe doesn't really make any sense anymore. Because what happened was, and I understand from the heart of Agile, is that the idea is to scrape away all of the formalities and a lot of the techniques and methodologies that are kind of gumming up the works and actually preventing agility from taking place. And I'm opening this up to all of you is just given, what do you think that this notion of involvement by the stakeholders and the clients and customers, internal or external, is kind of an impediment in and of itself or a barrier to collaboration because it seemed like you were all in almost constant communication throughout the whole process.
So interestingly, so I came with no Agile background actually. So when Alistair came to us, I was like, well, I'm going to go to this meetup that's happening like a week later so I can learn what this Agile stuff is. We say we're an Agile agency, but I didn't really know what that truly meant. And I came back from the meetup and I was like, oh my God, it's amazing. We have so many things we have to do now. I was 100% in. But one of the things I have found through this engagement was that when we have that death by committee, when those internal stakeholders are the things that is gumming up the productivity, instead of resisting that and instead meeting that head on and coming to them and saying, we need to sit down face to face and be authentic and vulnerable with you and have that candor and talk about why this needs to happen the way we want it to happen. Across client engagements, it has been totally successful. We've seen clients that have gone quiet come back and reactivate with us. We've seen clients that were like, no, suddenly be like, we're all in, we love it. It's just meeting them face to face on their own terms, sharing their vocabulary and sharing the why of what we're doing for them. It's been amazing from my own experience.
I would agree. I think in addition, I think having, for me, taking this out to other clients, having those key stakeholders in the room when you do the blitz planning session, something that was on the photo that I didn't touch on is we had these red dots and connectors between the cards. So if there was a task that was dependent on another task further up the line, and that task was Alistair's responsibility, he saw it on that card. He knew that if he didn't get this piece done, it was going to affect other pieces down the road. And so having him in the room and having everybody else with their tasks also understand, because the gum up doesn't just happen on the stakeholder side, but having all of us understand how all of those puzzle pieces play together, and it was invaluable. Not just the doers and the bees, but the stakeholders.
I would suggest, though, that yes, the client side is usually a huge impediment. I'm serious. He's a unique case that came into the office. This project was not one of our larger projects. He would come into the office on a regular basis. None of our other clients care to come and collaborate with us. They want to milestone meeting, they want a presentation, and they want to leave the office. They're paying us to do the work, and they want to keep their hands clean and all of that. It's hard to get them to get buy-in. I think they're paying us to do everything.
What time are we at? We're at 7:41. Few more questions. There was somebody at the back.
I just wanted to talk about collaboration and the fact that it takes a lot of work.
Yes.
Right? So there's a lot of interactions that happen over a period of time. So how to motivate people to want to collaborate and to do the work, all of the detailed work that needed to happen in those many, many collaborations over that long period of time, and how to continue to keep that energy moving forward and keep the enthusiasm and the fun up. I mean, all of you guys get that. But what if you had a team member who wasn't buying into that? What do you do?
Alistair in our class is called The Kitchen. Talks a lot about collaboration, right? And I won't sit here in front of everyone and profess to be the experts of collaboration. I will tell you that it's the number one priority that I have here at BigSea as my role. Right? I've long heard that the employees' jobs are to do the thing that the company does, right? And our job as owners and managers is to build the people. So collaboration is super important to me. The things we try to help are, if there's employees who don't or disengage, the conversation isn't to isolate them and shoo them, it's to lean in closer to them and find out why they disengage, right? Like, have you guys ever heard that a pessimist is an optimist who's been many times? Like, that's all it is, right? So I think, again, not to answer your question also, I don't know if the heart of Agile is about peeling back all these activities. Like, I don't know, right? It's about all these activities promoting a conversation. Are they doing the job they're intended to do? Which whether it's sprint planning, whether it's user stories, whether it's what it is it better findings? Are we talking more? At the end of the day, with my civil mind, I will tell you that regardless of what I know about that particular task or set, the more that somebody talks about that, the clearer it is, and the higher confidence level I have that's going to be executed properly. And so, like, I don't have much advice to tell you other than, like, it's the minor things, the day-to-day things that we do at the office that promote that kind of collaboration. It's mainly a safe space. And if I were you, please go get the culture code. It's wonderful. It kind of explains the importance of culture and how that builds just what you're saying, the trust factor, right?
There's an exercise in it because Dewey recommended it to me and then I started reading it and I love it as well. There's an exercise in it that talks about, like, the negative person in the room and how they can kill collaboration. But if you choose to step in and be the positive person, the yes person, you can kind of undo their negative work. And I think one of the really unique and amazing things about working at BigSea is that everyone on our team is willing to see that ebb and flow and kind of step in and support each other. So as a specific example, there was a client where I was feeling very disengaged and kind of grumpy and negative, and Erica had just started. Right, so she's a fresh face, but Erica and I sit next to each other and we work literally side by side all day, every day. And so my attitude was going to affect her attitude, where she was just walking in. And Adriana stepped in and was like, "We need to not let Autumn's experience color your experience," and, like, out loud in front of me, like. And it's a beautiful moment, right? Because it made me stop and go, "Oh, right, I am projecting my own experience onto the team, and I need to not do that. I need to go inside and think about why I'm feeling this way about the client. How can I change the way I'm experiencing this client?" And it gave Erica the fresh perspective that she needed so that she could have a positive experience with the client. And that client is now, after some engagement, one of our favorites. And went from, that it turned full circle, but it took someone being willing to be brave enough to talk about the elephant attitude. Let that go.
One of our tenets at BigSea is open and honest always, and I think that also relates to your question, is just, and to what Dewey was saying, it doesn't, it can be public if it's done factually. I don't know if I did it tactfully or not, or it can be private, but just getting to the root of it and understanding the why. I think there is a lot of why having been talked about in the Heart of Agile methodology too, but it's like Alistair was saying, it's not so much this big highfalutin methodology, it's just really simple stuff. asking someone, why are you disengaged? Why are you feeling so? It takes minutes, and then someone feels heard, and someone feeling heard is so much more validated and valuable to a team. So I don't think it's as hard to rally a team to collaborate if you take the time to pay attention to them and their unique experiences. It does wonders, and it takes hardly any time at all, and you grow closer.
I would also say we only hire incredibly self-aware and emotionally intelligent.
Here's what we said. If the meeting's happening, every talk to one person you want to talk to. That's the person needs to start changing the way they behave to incorporate everyone, right? I have a really hard and fast rule, which is I typically use we in everything we do, right? Like there is no I built the site, I did this for Alistair. There's we, and the more we say we, the more we're fostering eating our own dog food, truly believing what we're saying we're doing, right? And so again, the key is tomorrow, go to those meetings and see, are you a team that's talking around the room to everyone, or is everyone talking to one person? Because chances are, if they're talking to one person, that person is dictating the whole tone of everything, right? Whether or not they're higher up or lower down, what does it matter who they are? Right? But that's the person that needs to be the change agent for fostering that collaboration. Thank you.
So we've got somebody at the back and two more. Is that right? Are you? No? Okay, just two right here.
I am an information architect, and one of the problems that I see in all projects with the Agile is that we don't use enough the tools that we already have in IT. We have tools that are for modeling. Modeling is the last thing that we think in an Agile project. A requirement should be linked to a process. If the requirement is not linked to a process, why you are asking for this stuff? If there is no data for this requirement, how can you suppose that we can deliver this requirement? So there is some tool in IT that I believe that we don't use very well in an Agile project. So this is my comment. And thank you for the presentation. Very nice.
So can I just rephrase that for you guys? Because you shifted from a process-centric to a collaboration-centric. And so our form of requirements, which we just did today, we have a spreadsheet with like 4 lines on it, and we spent an hour and a half arguing about the implementation and everything of all the lines. That's a lot smaller spec than you normally would get. Does it feel like, or did it feel like, to go from A to B, when would you use the tighter, longer spec versus when you would use the collaboration as specification?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think the key, obviously, for more complex things, as I'm sure everyone in the room is working on, you need a record, right? You have to keep it somewhere. So however you use it, you got to keep it somewhere. But the key is, how are you in your organizations using that to go back and talk about it, check in with it, and revisit and iterate, if you will, even in ideation, right? Like, are you reflecting? Are you reflecting to improve that process? So to Alish's point, we have all kinds of tools. Same with us, all kinds of tools, right? The question again is, some tools are great. Like teamwork you saw in there, that's what we always worked on. But is teamwork really fostering an environment that promotes collaboration? To talk about these data points, right? So how are you storing data points? Great, use that to store data points. What other tools are you doing to again revisit that, right? Is that still on track? Is that still what we need to do? Is that still relevant, right? 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later. So the biggest downside I think that we might have chased in the first couple of years of business is looking for the tool messiah, right? The one tool to rule them all, right? How many reasons like that, right? I'm going to go Jira. I'm going to go Trello. I'm going to go whatever, you name it. It doesn't matter. Like cards have worked awesome for us now. But the big question, like, it's logistical. Like, how do we have cards on a board that we move around? A year ago, we got Trello. But again, I think to your point, go back and look at your tool set and find out which ones are you getting the most buy-in from people. Because that's the tool that's going to count the most, right? No one tool is going to do it all for you. But if it promotes conversation, I think you're halfway there. That's again my main question, my litmus test for everything we do at our agency now is, what does this tool do, and are other people using it? All right? It's not I want to do it. I think it's really cool. It looks really good. Let's do it. It's, hey, is this really helpful? Does this start a conversation between this person, this person, this person, this person, and the other 18 people in the back of our office? And if so, fantastic. To Harv's point, we're using Google Sheets right now. As simple as it gets. I don't even color code the background and text whatever. I would just type it in. I'm like, Alistair, have we talked about this? Enter next line. Talk about it? No. And that has worked phenomenally for us. And when he's back in town, we'll revisit that again and say, where are we? So is it a lot of the processes? Not really. But does it start a conversation? 100%. 100%. All 5 of us hit that spreadsheet like nobody's business. And I would show it to you, except for it's not very pretty and it's a little embarrassing, but it works. It absolutely works, right? So I don't know.
Thank you. One more question.
I like the tact, or maybe the tact that where we can touch things and having everybody in the room too. And you told a story about women and they were put the piles, what we really need, what we might need, what we can wait for. And so I have a situation where, we have stakeholder groups that don't agree but need to make choices about what's going to make it into MVP and carving out the releases. And it seemed like, wow, that sounds like a great idea. You bring them all into an on-site and you have these cards and they have to collaborate. And it seems almost, is it magical or, it doesn't, is it? Can you tell me a little, can you reassure me that will work?
Now, just me personally, I have done 2 clients. And in both cases, there was one person that stood out and kind of made the final decision. But it was a different type of conversation than just moving things around on a Trello board or just having a project plan that was a spreadsheet and little blocks. I don't want to sound cliche, but it was magical. I did not expect Alistair's method to work. I'm sorry. It works with us because we can all sit together and say, okay, we are going to come with a beginner's mindset and do this, and we're going to make this work. I can't get all these people together in a room and say, hey, everybody, this is how we're going to do this, and we're going to make this work for you. That's not. I wasn't sure. It was just kind of spitballing at that point. But in both cases, it opened up conversations among them. I stepped into the background. I was not part of those conversations. They, as a team, were making those decisions together, and you had somebody that was the standout, that was the final decision maker, but they were asking questions of each other that they would not have thought to ask if they had not all been standing around that table with those little index cards and the color-coded Sharpies.
And you don't have to be an expert at this to just jump in and.
Yeah, better to not be an expert, to be honest. No, yeah, it's simple, and I do think it's magical. I think there's something that happens in one place that when you're touching something and moving something, you're getting it way more than someone telling you, sending you a link to a Trello, digitally looking on a screen. Touching and moving does something so that your cognitive, I just believe it's true because it's worked for us, it worked with us with this project, it worked with other clients. And I also think there's something to be said when someone touches something, even though it's temporary and we're all doing it together, they're owning it. There is this undercurrent of buy-in, and not only buy-in, but they get it. Oh, we have 6 things in this column when we said there would only be 3 and we all agreed that there would only be 3. I'm not having to be the bearer of bad news, tell you that you have 3 extra things you can see for yourself. Mm-hmm. And we've never had to say, well, you got to move, because it's obvious. There's 3 spots, you got 6 cars, you got to move 3. And no one has to say it. It's just known.
And
so
you're not the bad guy.
I would highly recommend it. And Alistair also would he would tell us stories about other talks he did, or he would come to meetings, and he said today in our meeting, I'm just talking about this for the first time. I don't know where this is going. And that sort of honesty and candor and just vulnerability with each other puts people at ease. And you say, listen, I'm experimenting with this. Let's see how it goes. You're not putting so much weight that like, I'm going to show you this thing and it's going to be awesome. Like maybe it will, maybe it won't, but chances are you'll learn something really valuable from it.
Maybe don't lead with magical.
You have to say that.
So I want to pick up on that. What's important is not that you get it right. The thing that's magical is not that you do anything specific with the cards. And I just came back from, and I'm going to call out another colleague, Tony Christensen at the Royal Bank of Scotland. And he's pretty high up, and he's doing what they call big room planning. And they were doing the quarterly plan for all of Royal Bank of Scotland subsection. 150 people in the room, 15 teams of 10 people, all the roles represented. And they gave them a 15-minute tutorial on what to do with the cards. And when I went there, everybody was using the cards wrong. And I commented to the facilitator, they're all doing this instead of that. He says, well, that's wrong, we have to correct it. Well, I don't know, don't touch anything yet. We don't know what it means. But the conversations were awesome, right? The product owner says something and the tech person says something and then the scrum master says, and then somebody else objects and they're all like, maybe they're turning it around. And apparently they would get sponsored. One of the executives was there and would say, hey, can we get money or change a date or get access to you or whatever. The person would remove the decisions, right? Peel the decisions down. And I was talking to Tony about this and he kind of smiled and he said, I deliberately made sure they didn't have enough instructions to try to do it right. The point is it didn't matter what the cards were doing on the wall. The point was they were trying to put anything up and they had to have the discussion to sort it out. And it's the discussion that was magic. And then they embellish the cards and they change them and they write what they want in their tasks or their stories or who cares and they write it this way or that way or decorate it or you. It doesn't matter because what happened was the conversation, the people tune the cards to whatever they need to express. So it's very specific. That's a wonderful example where he very deliberately made sure they didn't have all they could live in was with the conversation and writing things. And Zooey said it already about 36 times. The sign of these types of tools is it triggers a conversation, whether it's on the wall or in the cards or on the screen or whatever. He said over and over. So these cards, what Erica was saying, you put them down, you say, hey, we're going to do this, you go mumble, 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 right? And then the people start doing things and then they object and they counter object and they offer advice and conversation. That's the magic. By the way, that's in the Agile Manifesto, right? That's what individuals and interactions over processes and tools literally means. Pay attention to those, the magic of when we wrote the manifesto, it was processes and tools are important, no doubt. The magic is in the individuals and their interactions. These cards are ways of triggering these interactions. So, let's have it.
You have really reassured me.
All right, thank you, everybody. It's time. Perfect. Thank you for coming out.
Is for the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, where we want to kind of come together and share some things that work and talk about how that affects your life and maybe how it affects your work life. So there's some ideas. We're going to see if Alistair will join us from wherever he is in South America, unless he's on retreat. But what do you think? Does that sound like a reasonable thing that maybe we can share some things that worked at Thanksgiving from an Agile perspective? And maybe that will help us go into the holidays. What do you think? Okay, thank you for coming. Again, thank you to Angelica and her name just slipped my mind. Thank you for coming.
Hey, Carol.
I'll talk to you tomorrow. Okay, have a good night.